right. Hi, everyone. It's now 6:05 p.m. and I'd like to call the regular Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 to order. Can we please stand for a Pledge of Allegiance? I'll just lead. Clerk. Oh. Clerk, can I please get
Commissioner DeVries,
Here.
Commissioner Maderos, Commissioner Pisano,
Here.
and Chair Aranda.
here? This is the time for general public comment on items that are not on the agenda that are under the city subject matter jurisdiction. The Planning Commission will not be engaging. If you have anything that requires follow-up, staff will get back to you. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The chair may further limit the time for public comments depending on the agenda schedule. If you are attending in person and wish to make a public comment, please fill out a speaker card and state your name for the record. I would now like to open up the floor for public comment. Staff, any public comments?
No speaker cards received and seeing nobody, no hands raised on Zoom.
Thanks. Anyone on Zoom? Nope. All right, great. I'm going to be moving on to our next item, which is consent.
And Chair, before we do that, just real quick, maybe I missed it. Commissioner Maderos, is that an excused absence or unexcused absence?
An excused absence. I didn't receive notification of his absence.
We begin to reflect that in the minutes if you
Got it. Yeah, it would be an unexcused. I didn't get an email either. So. Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that call out. So again, moving on to consent, and we are going to be approving the affidavit for posting agenda and B, approving the special meeting minutes of March 14, 2024, and approving the regular meeting minutes of April 2nd, 2024. Is there anyone here that would like to pull a consent item in the public or?
Sorry.
Oh,
There he is.
there he is. Hello, welcome. So I guess we can reflect the minutes to show here. Perfect.
I was gonna say, Mr. Chair, that I'll be abstaining from consent items 3B and 3C.
Got it. Thank you. Does that mean you need to leave the room? Oh,
No.
okay.
Not for an abstention.
All right, cool.
Just for a conflict.
Thank you. So, any commissioner like to pull any of the consent items?
None at this time.
Commissioner Maderos?
Yep.
And then I would like to pull the special meeting minutes of March 14, 2024. And I would like to see if we could change Commissioner DeVries's unexcused absent to excused due to a personal matter.
Ms. Bill, your name on. Yeah. On one of the meetings.
Great.
Page 4 of the first. I think it was the first meeting.
So is B? March 4th. Well, I guess if we can correct my name, but
Page 4, 7, item 7.
come on, guys. I'm just kidding. All right. So is there, with the changes made, is there a motion and a second from any of our commissioners?
Sure. Can we do the affidavit of posting and the regular meeting minutes of April 2nd first?
Okay, yeah. So can I get a motion or second from any of our commissioners?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion from Commissioner DeVries and a second from Commissioner Pisano, Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner DeBreeze,
Aye.
Commissioner Maderos,
Yes.
Commissioner Pisano,
Aye.
Chair Aranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And then I guess, and that was for A and B, correct?
Oh, A and B?
A and C, I'm sorry. And
Oh,
then,
then I made an error. I thought it was just for the affidavit of posting, so I might have to redo that. Cause I said yes to C and I needed to abstain from B and C. My apologies, I didn't hear you include C and,
I'll make the correction as abstained.
oh, thank you. Okay, that handles it.
and then, I'm sorry, no, which one was the one that we needed to do? Was it B?
B.
B. All right, so, with the minutes being was it updated or amended? Can I get a motion, from any of the commissioners?
I move to approve consent item B after amendments are made.
And can I get a second?
Second.
With a motion, from Commissioner Pisano and a second from Commissioner Maderos, clerk can I have a roll call?
Commissioner DeBreeze,
Abstain.
Commissioner Maderos,
Yes.
Commissioner Pisano,
Aye.
and Chair Aranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. All right, agenda item 4, review and discuss drafting housing element and fair housing analysis status report. Staff, do we have anything?
Yeah, we sure do. Want to introduce Isaac George.
Hello.
Hello, Isaac. Hopefully we don't have any feedback from your speaker. We've been struggling with that this morning, today, your microphone. Just for the planning commission's background, the original draft of the housing element was sent to HCD in September. And we received it back in December and 4 pages of comments from HCD. Extensive changes were required by the state. It's a struggle for us, honestly, because they treat every city the same. And we're just a tiny little city. And so it makes it really hard to jump through all these hoops. And Isaac will touch on some of them. For example, Commissioner Pisano was not on the commission then, right? So this is like, when you say there's a lot of reading for this meeting, that's for sure. For me, it was just skimming through the same old stuff, looking at the blue lettering in the draft are the edits that Isaac had to make. So I'll let him walk us through those and feel free to ask any questions. It's a critical document. The housing element is a critical document. The general plan is a critical document. So it's real important work that we're doing tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and honorable members of the Planning Commission, City Manager and staff. As the City Manager has mentioned, we have received comments on our first draft that we sent to HCD, and we have made copious changes to those, and it is attached as an attachment, an exhibit to your staff report. I'm sure you've had the opportunity to go through that. At today's meeting, we just wanted to bring this to you to keep you informed of the status of where we stand and what is expected tomorrow. So these comments that you have been provided has already been submitted to HCD for the second set of reviews. So the first attachment, which is highlighted in the same letter of comments that we received from HCD, tells us what they have asked us and how we responded. So staff thought that will give you a lot of time to be able to see what kind of issues are of concern to HCD and how staff has addressed those. And as you peruse, many of them were previously addressed, but HCD probably have not really understood the detail, or these are voluminous documents, probably about 200 pages each between the housing element and the fair housing analysis, and it's not easy even for them to go through and digest it. So it's possible that some questions were repeated but answered those. There were some analysis that were additionally added, and they were all shown in track records, so they know what we deleted and what was added. So it is not arbitrary. so they know exactly how we are responding to each of those questions. The second one is the actual, the crux of the housing element document. As in the past meeting, staff has mentioned, there are a lot of detailed statistical analysis, census data based on the 2020 count, as well as the American Community Survey, which is an average of a 5-year ongoing survey with some margins of errors. They are not absolute counts. And so those statistics were, most of them were provided by HCD. And we also had to use TCAC data. That TCAC stands for Tax Credit Allocation Committee data, and all the maps that you have seen previously in the fair housing document. So with the second round of submission, we had to post it for 7 days on the city's website as required by law. HCD will review this probably within about 30 days and send us their response. Either they would say, yeah, we are happy that we see that you have addressed all these things, or they would send us another comment letter and say, yeah, you addressed most of it, but there are some issues that we would like to clarify, or they may recommend a specific program. And in some cases, they would say, yeah, we are very happy and we will give you a conditional approval. That's rare, but for the other jurisdictions that we are working, we have been getting a third set of comments, second set of comments, third set of comments, and it's pretty elaborate. So the intent here was just to bring to you, to let you know, the commission know what staff has done and what's being done at this point, what we can expect. So the next comment letter will come within 30 days. And whether it is in the second round or the third round, once all the comments are acceptable and the plan is determined complete by HCD, they will send us an approval letter. And at that time, the whole document to be adopted will come back first to the Planning Commission. And then upon your recommendation, it will go to the City Council for adoption. And once it's adopted, it will be sent back to HCD with a copy of the resolution of adoption from the council, and they will certify it after going through making sure that the resolution is correct and we properly follow procedures, and that will be the end of this whole exercise. So at this point, this is not a public hearing, and typically when you discuss a housing element of a housing document, we also allow the public to come in, but we thought instead of waiting for the next set of comments and corrections, we owe it to you to bring it to you to say where it stands as a status report. So you can ask any clarifying questions you might have on the process as a whole. So this ends the staff report, and at this time, you're welcome to ask any questions that staff might have.
I would like to just Chair, if I could add to that a little bit, City Manager Reynolds talking. There are some new things in here, and there's a big focus on affordable housing.
Yeah.
In fact, to the point where it's recommending that we change the name of the Planning Commission to the Planning and Housing Commission. And so it's a recommendation, and so we should ponder that, not tonight necessarily, but as we see the final draft come back in 30 days. There's a lot of work in here for the city to do that frankly we don't have staff for. I know David's very sensitive to that. Appreciate that. And so I want to make sure that we're comfortable with the level of responsibility that we're offering in this plan. It may satisfy the state and we may get a green light on this, but boy, is there a lot of work to do. A lot of zoning code to be revised, a lot of reporting to do, and just a whole affordable housing plan that needs to be adopted and move forward. I think the community supports affordable housing. Ever since my first planning commission meeting in the community hall, it was all about affordable housing. So I don't think that's the issue. Just the capacity we need to pay for this program in our general fund right now, because we don't have community development revenue flowing in from development resources and other things. The inclusionary housing money that was set aside, I think was spent on cycle 5, just to get, so we had a housing money set aside and we used it to pay, to get up to speed on our housing element. So that's what was happening in 2018 and 2019, and now we're here. So, anyway, Isaac and I are Eric hasn't had much of a chance to see it yet. But we're happy to go through this line by line, or however you'd like to do it, Chair.
I think line by line would be the next.
Much.
No, I was like, no, that's a lot. Yeah, no, yeah, I don't know, I just. No, I don't. Sorry. No. Is it Isaac? Maybe we meet him. Yeah, so however, we want to do it, I obviously, yeah, it's not gonna be line by line, but, what other options do we have?
Well, we're gonna get, did I find, Mr. Chair, if I understood the consultant accurately, it sounded like we're getting another look at this, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Because we're still waiting on to hear back from, was it the state you were saying?
Right. No, they have 30 days to send it back to us.
Got it.
As Isaac said, it'll take 2, maybe even three or 4 rounds. One thing that's, if you just wanted to skip to a summary in the back are a list of objectives. There's 4 different objectives, and then there's subcategories under each of those. The housing plan, housing goals, policy and programs. We could review some of those, especially policy 3, the one that caught my eye. But there's a lot of provisions in here to make it easier for multifamily housing, workforce housing, housing for middle income families, and a variety of tools and expectations that are outlined here. Annually monitor the progress of pending projects, ADU projections, and development of candidate housing sites through the annual reports. Residential hotels, all kinds of housing that we don't really have right now. And so it's providing quite a variety. But there are 14 under category 3, and they're all going to be pretty staff intensive. Low barrier navigation centers, 3.8. Will accommodate the approval of low barrier navigation centers to better address the needs of its residents experiencing homelessness. So that navigation center is going to be at the county, and we have money set aside to help with that. So we can help support that navigation center. That's a center where they have a variety of resources. So if you're a veteran, you can go talk to the Veterans Assistance. You can go talk to public health, and a variety of resources in one spot. So I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go through any of these objectives, but that's what the state is going to expect us to do once they approve it.
Question, I know we're not, I'm not trying to take up a lot of our commissioners' time, but this sounds like it's a big, this is gonna take some time, so I hate asking for this. How would a workshop feel like? It doesn't have to be on the weekend, but like, maybe we're just focused on that and talking about that.
One of my questions that I had on this, because I think Mr. George had said that it's open for questions, is the first memorandum from December 20th from Brian Pouch is public participation in the development, adoption, and implementation of the housing element. Just want to know, Mr. George, what was the percentage of San Juan Bautista's population who participated in the responses to this housing element? Because there are items like our city manager had stated that are to me a question, one of them being that the planning commission becomes planning and housing. There are many questions about the ADU. There's a question that I have about the fair housing enforcement and outreach capacity. Who's the administrator? And are these responses, are they status as of today or status as of December? There are a lot of vague items and general statements that have been made that I think needs to be responded to in specific measurement that may come back from ACD when they look at this. As the city manager pointed out, I wasn't here when this all began, but looking at it, it is a lot of reading, a lot of things to address. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I think the most important part for me is what was the public response? How was that taken care of? Because it also mentions about the website and transparency of the city's website. And I just clicked on it, and I will tell you that the city's website is not up to par in being user-friendly to be able to get the information with regards to housing, specifically the ADUs. There are a lot of forms on the website, but they're going to need guidance. And so who's going to guide them in that? And I didn't see that in my reading as to who specifically would be addressing this, other than the fact that the Planning Commission is being requested to become planning and housing. But then that goes into question of now the Planning Commission is Planning Commission, Historic Resources Board, and Planning and Housing.
That's a long.
So,
meeting, yeah.
so that's a lot.
Exactly.
That's a lot. So I apologize, but as I said, I have a lot of questions. I tagged a lot of pages. But that's it. What was the participation rate of the population of City of San Juan Bautista, and how was it applied or implemented that they could participate? Oh, he's muted.
That's because his mic was so.
Madam Commissioner, with regards to several points that you have made, we have incorporated a previous survey that was done by the city to satisfy some of the public concerns or issues from the past. The public hearings that we conducted was before your body, and the first draft was looked at by this body before it was sent to HCD. So at this point, what you have to look at is the changes staff has made in response to comments from HCD. In other words, what happens is this goes on a linear fashion. If you have concerns about any of these must be discussed at a public hearing or a public workshop, because the intent here today was to have you know about the status, and if you have any specific concerns or issues or clarifying issues, you ask staff of it, and then move on with the review of the second draft by HCD. But I see that you have some concerns concerning the naming convention, whether it is going to be Planning Commission, Housing Commission, in which case you will be performing two functions at the same time at the same meeting. This is to satisfy some of the requirements from HCD, saying that the city must have some kind of an ombudsman or some kind of a system to tackle complaints or fair housing issues. Because all these amendments that we have done is based on the questions that you are seeing in that letter of their December letter. So because we are in the process of review, and if we cannot afford to keep making changes and sending it back to HCD. So at this point, if you would like to comprehensively go through and say, yes, we want to do it, or we don't want to do it. And then if you say, yes, Isaac, we do not want to do it, and if that is absolutely required by law, we will say, yeah, this is being considered by HCD. If you don't provide this, they're not going to approve or certify this document. So the goal, the only general plan document that has to be approved by the state is the housing element. And the amendments that we have been receiving are so many that until HCD says, yes, we like what you have said, you are compliant with the housing laws of the state, they are not going to approve it, they're not going to certify it, and then it creates a bigger problem for us. So you should only look at the red line comments and changes that we have made. We may have added one program, and then you can look at that and say, okay, that's a new program you recommended. Is it required by law? Yes, all these programs that are recommended are required by some state law or the other. And ACD has been pointing out to us because our existing one or the first staff did not address those. So we cannot completely revamp what we have before you. We have to be compliant in giving the answers. But however, I see that there may be some details that you may want to know. In that case, the best scenario would be a public workshop where public can also come in, and we can take 2 hours or 3 hours going through it. And my short answer to all of those that you see there, these are all requirements from the state. We are not volunteering anything. This is based on what other cities have agreed to getting these certified. So we cross-compared many comments that other cities received and how they responded and how the discussion went on until it was certified. So instead of getting into a continuum of discussion with ACD, we wanted to kind of limit it to specific drafts and give them what they're looking for so that we can get approved and certified.
So Chair, essentially what's happening is the draft came we didn't have time to do the 10-day notice. Or whatever the notice requirement is. We didn't have a chance to publish that. So, but we did want to bring it forward in one shape or another.
Okay.
And one thing that I'm happy to do, and we sort of introduced you to it today, because you came in a little bit early and we jumped through some of the concerns and issues that I had. I'd be happy to meet with you one at a time or two on one, and we could jump through some of my concerns and compare notes, and then come to a workshop prepared and informed, and so that take advantage of my review, and it'd be more efficient for you.
That'd be terrific.
All right, so then yeah, let's move forward with the workshop. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, just not a weekend, preferably.
I was just thinking about that, Mr. Chair, and I think all of us, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think all of us can do a weekday early afternoon, can't we? Aren't we all around?
Yeah, I think I can make it work. So yeah, I think a workshop would make sense. It's a lot. So that's why I was like, there's no way we're gonna be able to do this on a regular planning commission meeting. So
How much time do you need? How much lead time do we need, Liz?
it will be open to public since this is a workshop, right? Yeah. So it should satisfy all these.
Like the,
Yeah, we should just give a 10-day notice, a minimum 10-day notice, and then have the public come in if they want to. In the past, we haven't had a great response, but we had few people at the first staff meeting. So that's a good idea.
there haven't been many people coming, so.
Yeah.
No.
I think it's dependent on the avenues that are used to have the public be notified, right? I mean, I know we rely on the internet or the website quite a bit in notifications, but there must be some other way, maybe 2 or 3 different forms that we could do that.
Well,
So to get,
We just sent out the water bill.
Well, I can help. I can blast that out on Facebook like we did with the last workshop.
Yeah, good.
just different avenues, just to get as many people as we can there.
Sure.
Yeah, if we want, I think that makes sense. Keeping it Tuesday.
I'm not gonna be able to do it until the 5th.
Oh, okay. What's another day?
Mondays are good, but
Okay,
Or-
also working possibly on our budget for the 25th.
Thursday, the 27th.
Yeah,
What about Thursday the 27th?
that we could do.
You gonna swing that? Let's just do what, around the same time, or do you want to do a little earlier, like 5?
Earlier.
Let's do it before it gets so hot.
Okay. What do you guys prefer? 4? Anybody? Okay, let's do 4.
Get home without dinner.
It's okay with it?
If everyone's okay with that, then let's do Thursday the 27th at 4, please. Public workshop.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that
Thank you,
presentation.
Mr. George.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a pleasure meeting you all. See you on the 27th.
Mr. Chair and Mr. George, I just want to say this before we move on.
27th.
27. I just wanted for the record say that I'm categorically opposed to renaming ourselves the San Juan Planning Commission and Housing Commission. I mean, creating an ombudsman or a point person or something for that, fine, but we're not going to turn into a housing commission. That's ridiculous, in my opinion.
Well, Isaac, by any chance, what are other cities doing about that? So let's just say we don't have the staffing to do all that. Have you seen in other cities where they also become the housing commission, or do they have like an
Yes.
email that people can like an email address that goes out to somebody and they can address it, or we hire a consultant? What does that look like?
One of the ones that I have researched was the city of Riverside, because most of the small cities do not have the ability to have an ombudsman or the city attorney's office inundated with complaints coming and investigations and things like that. Many cities are focusing on, in fact, to other cities, we have recommended same as a solution, converting the planning commission or rename the planning commission as planning and housing commission. It doesn't mean that you're going to be inundated with so much of housing stuff, which you are already doing. The main thing is to tell the state that, yes, we have a commission. If somebody wants to come and complain about discrimination, about getting a loan or getting some rental properties in town, and of course, we don't necessarily have to investigate ourselves to fruition. There are county agencies and many other nonprofit entities in the county who will deal with those. And we have mentioned that in our draft, that we will refer those after discussion to the county or other entities that are working within the county. So that becomes a solution instead of saying, yeah, we have nobody to listen to people's complaints. So instead of making another housing commission, there are so many commissions: architectural commission, design review committee, housing commission, planning commission. And small cities such as ours, we don't have the staff. So it kind of kills two in one and as a strategy. I can provide you some more examples of other cities that has planning and housing commissions. So it's not that you also meet again for housing issues, just one agenda. It basically provides some member of the public to come and complain about any issue that comes in town, so that we meet that obligation. One thing I know I heard discussed, may I respond to that? You may be perplexed, my God, with all these housing programs, how are we going to do it? Once the document gets certified, all cities are now doing what is called housing element implementation. So in that stage, all these programs will get converted into either a resolution or a zone change or zoning text code amendment or some other creation of an entity, of course, which would have been an investigation of forming the planning commission as also a housing commission. Instead, here we are saying, yes, we're willing to look at that right now as a program. So the implementing plan will look at all these and then find solutions and put them in order, applying for grants or whatever. So that becomes part of the implementation. So the housing element, once certified, doesn't end there. And of course, the city would have to have some budget to hire somebody to do that implementation plan. But I think the workshop is a good idea. Honestly, at the second stage of receiving draft from a city, I've never had any city go back and conduct a workshop. Because what happens is it puts everything backward and delays the whole process, where a city would say, well, are you going ahead or not going ahead? And what if we say we don't want to do something and a city says, no, you must have a program like that. In that case, we get into a deadlock and we will never get approved for the housing plan. So there are some issues in this, but we can at least look at the key issues of concern because we need to do something that we say. And the annual progress report is required to let HCD know what we have done within that first year. And up until the next 8-year cycle, what we have been doing in order to accomplish all of these. So when the next housing element gets done, at the end of 8 years, they're going to ask for a report on progress. If you really look at the housing element, there is a review of the 5th cycle housing element. In the past, we used to say we didn't have staff, therefore we could not do it. It was COVID, therefore we could not do it. But this time, HCD has asked us to give finite numbers, meaning how many ADUs have you built? How many code enforcement actions have you taken? If you have had plans to apply for a grant, why didn't you apply? What were your constraints? What will you do to accomplish that in the next 8th cycle? And that has really become a very big task to explain what happened in the last 5 or 10 year cycles. So the same will happen when we do the next one. So keep in mind that we want to address our concerns, but at the same time, we don't want to go back to create an open-ended discussion where we'll have to revamp everything. We just want to comment on HCDs and say, remember, we have already submitted this to HCD for review. And if we change something, we have to be really careful in explaining why we don't want to do it. And this is all the more true, especially since we have growth control. We were talking about sphere of influences, and we touched on these things very lightly. And with the way the state is now with the housing laws, it is really taken away a lot of the former rights that the cities had. And that's where ADUs and SB9s and all the new laws are coming in, constraining and literally tying, for no other word, literally tying the hands of cities being able to administer some of these housing programs as we used to in the past. Just thought I would just mention that, so we all keep that in mind.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, so I mean, also, Don, I have a question. So what if we, rather than it being the Planning and Housing Commission, what if could we tie that in with Historic Resource Board, or have another group that would just handle that?
That's what I was thinking, and can I add on to that idea?
Yeah,
And query whether that other group or entity or whatever it would be to cut down on the need for staff time and all that other stuff. Would only meet on an as needed basis, meaning in the event that a complaint was received or an issue popped up or something, but
Yeah.
completely with the expectation that very few would annually.
So, putting on my creative hat on what's left of it today.
What?
Putting on my creative hat, we rely on the Santa Cruz Housing Authority to do affordable housing for us per se. They issued the Section 8 vouchers for our apartments.
Mhm.
And it's potential there that we could expand that contract or contract with the county. They have an affordable housing program now, so that we could have an ongoing response to a call or a complaint line. And then limits this to a as needed or even quarterly basis.
Yeah.
So it meets 4 times a year, whether we need to or not, to have housing cake or whatever. And try and staff it on an ongoing basis, on a hotline basis, but also on an as needed basis or a quarterly basis. So we can play with different ideas. So it's not so onerous.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. Yeah. Or like I said, email alias or something, and then it needs to come onto somebody's agenda, then we address it as is.
You can make the council do it.
Yeah, make the council do it. Yeah.
They're the appeal board though. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, aren't we allowed to send things to council anyways?
They're the appeal board, so we need to leave an avenue short of going to court.
Yeah, all right, then I guess obviously we're not gonna vote or anything, so that, I mean, I guess we can address that at the workshop.
Yeah, I think, but yeah, put on your creative hat and see what you think.
All right, sweet.
Right.
Any public comments from chambers?
No speaker cards received, Chair.
Any public comments from Zoom?
No hands raised.
Commissioner comments, anybody here? Nope, all right, so, I guess we'll move on to, B, 4B, discussion of the sign, regulations in the city. Staff, do we have a report?
We do. I don't, do you have my presentation?
Thank you. Thank you and welcome.
So I'll introduce Erica Frazier. She's our interim planning director, working with Four Leaf. And she came on board and I swamped her with all kinds of planning stuff.
Well, welcome.
So the fact that she's got the courage to be here and follow through, I really appreciate it. Thank you, Erica.
Can I, does that
Oh,
advance it?
yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, there you go.
So, real quickly tonight, we just wanted to talk, to the planning commission about the sign regulations in the city. And kind of have some feedback discussion on maybe if you'd like us to do anything in the future, if you've received complaints. Signs in San Juan Bautista are regulated under two things. Number one is our municipal code, and it's chapter 1110. And the second is there are guidelines within our design guidelines, and that's chapter 8.
Are both of those in there, or just the one?
They should both be in there, yeah. So I'm gonna briefly go over some of our sign regulations, just if anyone's listening, so everyone's on the same page. We do have prohibited signs. Prohibited signs are A-frame signs unless located on private property and within 15 feet of a building entrance. So that would be, let's say in a shopping center, you could have A-frame signs as long as your A-frame sign was within 15 feet of your business entrance. But if you were facing like a public sidewalk, you couldn't put your A-frame sign on a public sidewalk. Internally illuminated signs are prohibited. Sometimes those are referred to as can signs, such as an older type style, but it's the internal illumination. You have to have external illumination. Animated or moving signs, portable signs, or billboards, those are all prohibited. Some general design regulations, and these mostly come out of the design guidelines, but they do apply. Signs are to be constructed to give the appearance of hand craftsmanship. Three-dimensional, hand-carved, and painted signs are strongly encouraged. The preferred materials are wood or metal. You can use some synthetic materials if it appears to look similar to one. Plastic sign faces are discouraged. Colors should complement the colors used on the building, and projecting signs are deemed the most appropriate type of sign. We also allow for temporary signs. We have temporary construction signs. We have election signs. You can have a grand opening or closing or other special event sign. You are limited in size to that. It's 20 square feet. You can have it for 30 days and you can only have a total of 30 days within a 1-year period. You may have a special event sign that's smaller, that's 10 square feet. And again, you get no more than 30 days prior to the event, but you do get 2 per year, but you have to have 3 months in between. So sign comes down, 3 months later, you can have another sign. Subdivision advertising signs. So if a developer like KB Homes is a building, they can have some advertising signs, open house signs, and for sale signs. As far as commercial and mixed use signs go, I'm not gonna talk about residential signs today, focusing more on business type signs, but for commercial and mixed use signs, there are different sizes that you get based on interior corner lot. And we're measuring for interior lot, it's the frontage, you get a quarter square foot of sign for each linear foot of lot frontage. And then for a corner lot, they get the benefit of both sides added together. If it is multiple businesses within a center, they are to have a comprehensive sign program, which regulates the designs, so they all look consistent. And then motels or hotels have a specific size and it's 16 square feet. They can have monument sign. So after that very brief discussion, one of the things included in your agenda packet was a letter that was sent out back in 2022 to some to business owners within the downtown, going over what our regulations were. Specifically, I think A-frame signs was a big issue. And we were wondering if you had had any complaints regarding that letter or some of the regulations that we have, but we have 3 questions aimed at you tonight and will help us decide if we are gonna do anything, and if so, what. But mostly it's, you know, have you had any concerns or compliments regarding our sign regulations? Are there any changes that you feel that are warranted, both to either the sign ordinance or the design guidelines? And then if you're unsure or you additionally want additional research, let us know, and then we can kind of go about, you know, finding that information out for you. But it's really just for you to tell us kind of how we want to move forward with the sign regulations.
Got it. Thank you. So I guess, yeah, commissioners, any comments?
I have a couple.
Because I have a couple.
Want me to do mine?
Yeah, you want to go first?
Sure.
Please.
I already forgot your first name.
Erica.
What is it?
Erica.
Erica. Okay, I'll never forget it again, I promise. Erica, one of the issues that we have confronted somewhat recently is issue of A-frames for pop-ups. And I think if you go back to your slide on current permissibility for A-frames,
Mhm.
I don't know that they would necessarily be applicable to some other instances where we see A-frames being used by a pop-up temporarily. And so therefore, I don't know, special provision, we're going through the code right now as regards pop-ups, food trucks, things like that. A-frame signs unless located on private property and within 15 feet of the building entrance. So therefore, like, let's take, for example, Monday nights, they have the food trucks at Abbey Park. It's not private property. It's not with anywhere close to 15 feet of a building entrance, but yet I think they have some. Papa Brothers, for example, I think has an A-frame, or maybe the pizza guys too. So just, you know, I'm just issue spotting. Do we need to, when we're taking a look at the pop-ups and food trucks and so forth, need to make special provision for maybe an A-frame or a temporary thing for those guys? Just that, I'd say that kind of rhetorically, because I don't think there is a clear answer on that.
Depending on, sorry to interrupt,
no,
depending on how, and you would have to tell me what you want to do. Depending on how you want to do it. You know, cities regulate A-frame signs differently by business, right? So in some areas they are prohibited, in some areas they might require a permit, in some areas they're just allowed. So it is, if you wanted more research, we could do more research on that, but if you were thinking, I want to allow it in a specific place, or I want to change a regulation, you know, cities do it differently.
Okay.
Where, you know, maybe in a downtown you don't allow it, but maybe you do. I know Hollister does, you have to have a permit. Maybe you just allow it by right in some other areas. It's entirely up to you though.
Okay.
So in this issue, Erica, we actually have a special event permit that allows the food trucks to
And
run.
then under a special event permit, you can include signs on that. So that's a different issue.
That would be addressed and
Yeah, so-
covered by the special use
So
permit?
what's those like big food truck pop-up things that, you know, you see in some cities?
Mhm.
That entire event will have what we call temporary use permit or special event permit. And within that permit is everything, the trucks that are coming, the signage, if they have seating, if they have trash cans, if they have restrooms, that is all contained within that special event permit. That's an entirely different animal, all of its own.
It seems like from the municipality standpoint, the concern is ingress, egress and people tripping on them and so forth. So if that could be handled in conjunction with a temporary event permit or something, or looked at and make sure that they're safe or whatever, that's fine. Okay, the next is, next thing I wrote down and then as a note was internally illuminated signs. We all know it. Those are, with the obvious examples we can conjure up in our mind's eye, but let me ask you this question. Is a neon sign internally illuminated?
Yes, it is.
So therefore, we had a woman in this town for decades named Becky McGovern. And you wouldn't dare put up a neon, even open sign. Or Becky would be on you and then she'd be sitting right there at the next council meeting or planning commission meeting. How dare you? And I think we have a bunch downtown in the historic districts. And I think it might be news to the business owners that, that's internally eliminated and therefore prohibited under 11-10-100. So I think the city manager is working on code enforcement resources and so forth. Maybe that's something worth looking at. Next, I don't know how this would be addressed, but somewhat recently, maybe last year or so, there was a pretty controversial issue in our historic district with signs being placed on the interior of buildings, but like taped to the window, saying some kind of controversial things. What governs that?
It's freedom of speech, so you get involved with that. I did notice.
But it's a sign.
It's a so
And
the
free- and
code
speech can be
does not
regulated.
specifically limit those window signs, which I find a little strange because most do. So most sign regulations, well, because you don't want someone covering an entire window with signage. So most sign ordinances will say you can have no more than 20% of like the windows covered by a sign or blocking them off or whatever it is. And then sometimes you give an exception for like, okay, well, if they painted on a sign for the holidays, that's exempt or whatever, but this code does not speak to it. There's a lot of regulations, but there's also not a lot of regulations in it. There's some gray area in some ways, and then in some cases, like the internally illuminated sign, most cities will straight up say no neon.
So those are two things that I think would warrant taking a closer look, as they say on TV. Now you've had a closer look. And I know all about freedom of speech, but I also know therefore that speech can be regulated as long as it's reasonable time, place, manner of regulation, and it's fair. And those types of signs posted on the interior of historic buildings. I don't know if we address this at the Historic Resources Board level or at the Planning Commission level to go to the council, but those detract from the historic aesthetic of that building. They detract from the, in my opinion, they detract from the historic aesthetic of our historic district, which is on the National Registry. They're just an eyesore, and I think that that's something that needs to be addressed. That's my 2 cents. I don't know if anybody feels the same way. Next, speaking of windows. Well, I'm just gonna articulate this, and if I catch any flack for it, so be it. There's a number of businesses in our historic district on 3rd Street that have chosen to place very bright fluorescent string lights around the exterior of the window. That just looks gaudy as heck. One of my friends said, "Oh, do you guys have a red light district? It looks like Amsterdam." And I said, no, it's not really anything like that. I think it's smoothies or something. And those aren't necessarily signs, but they are a form of advertising. Obviously they're putting these bright fluorescent string lights around their windows in order to what? To call attention to themselves like a sign does, to attract customers, hopefully, like a sign does. And I'm not sure the tools that we have in our toolbox to take a look at something like that, but it is a huge problem, I think. And lastly, when I was at the county for a long time, we took up the county sign ordinance also, and there was a pretty strong sentiment against, I don't even know what you call them, maybe it almost looks like a piece of PVC pipe that kind of bends over, and then there's a long flag that kind of flutters in the breeze. What are those things called?
They're just called flags, or some people call them pennants or even banners.
Mhm.
It's within your banner regulations, sometimes they're allowed. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, a few of those have popped up around here recently. And I have the same feelings about those types of advertising and signage that I did in the county days, in that I dislike them. And especially in a historic town. The county, I didn't even care. I cared even less. But in this little cute historic town, I don't think they're appropriate. It's the same signs car dealerships use, and we've seen them all over the place. So Whereas the other things that you pulled from the design guidelines, that's, I think, what we're about, handmade, carved, whatever. And if someone is using one of those flags, I think you called it, for portable, not a portable, I just read that, a temporary type use, then maybe we can address it in the temporary permit thing. Or maybe, and they can have an A-frame instead. Serve the same purpose, might not be as gaudy, might not attract as much attention, but my own feeling is that I don't think they're appropriate for the city of History. So that's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners with comments, please?
I do. I was wondering, is there a regulation? I didn't see anything there where it is a commercial sign on a residential property. So the owner of the property owns a business and they put up a sign on the yard that is a commercial sign.
Is this like hypothetical or is this like,
It's real.
It's real. It's a contractor who's got just a regular square,
is it zoned residential?
Yes.
It's not.
Did we just go offline?
Would you say it's not?
I don't believe it's allowed then. And in no city are they ever allowed usually.
So you might wanna address that.
Yeah.
Code enforcement.
It's a pendulum, there's a big call for code enforcement, we go out and enforce and we're bad guys for doing that.
Yeah.
We Go back to our little closets, and then we wait 6 months and we go out and enforce again, and then we someone sees them.
Any other comments? No? And then I'll put in,
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about what we're hearing today. I'm one, I see a lot of things that are going on and I'm hearing what we're gonna do. I've gone through the ordinances or what have you. I'm really concerned about safety is probably number one. And does it generate business for the city? And is it conducted in such a way that it unifies the city in a direction that says we are safe, we are in it for good, our businesses, and inviting and advertising together. I think if we're doing all that individually as one business versus another business here in town, are we pulling together and making sure we're doing all the right things? And when it comes to controlling that or looking at that or monitoring that, we need to reach out to our community and ask them to, within the commercial business industry, and ask them to monitor that themselves. Excuse me, my voice is giving out. But what are we doing to reach out to them and saying, hey, if we're gonna do this, this is something we all have to work on together and monitor again and make sure we're in compliance when it comes to doing all the things that we set out to do when it comes to doing business, when it comes to being safe and happy. That's what I'm gonna be looking for in signs. When it comes to the history of the city of San Juan Bautista, that's imperative. I mean, we have a theme, we have a heritage that we need to advertise and make that part of our business of as far as our uniqueness here in San Juan Bautista and our rural setting, you might say. So everything speaks to that, and it's not going to be shocking. That's what I'm looking for in songs.
thank you. I think for me, I kind of agree with Commissioner Maderos. I think for me, I want to see us working with the commercial side or the businesses in downtown and figuring out exactly what is it that they're looking for and how we can support them. But also I do want to make sure, to Commissioner DeVries's point, that everything matches, right? If we're going to say, hey, it's an old handmade or whatever it is, wood or metal A-frame sign, that it all looks the same. It goes with our feel of town, in town. However, from me personally, from walking the downtown, the historic district, I do get a lot of complaints from our businesses that say, hey, you know, I'm struggling. People don't know I'm here. There's a car parked here and I want to have an A-frame sign or I want this, but they're told that they can't. So I want to make sure that they have that opportunity, but also ensure that it's safe within and you know, have an A-frame sign out there and whether people can get through our tiny sidewalks. So I don't know if that also warrants another workshop or something that allows the businesses to come out, but also the public to see what they want. You know, they want to see. I do agree with Commissioner DeVries that, you know, I don't really like seeing the tacky banners and all that. Kind of makes it look like a little flea market going on. So, if we can address some of those things, and also for food truck pop-ups, they should follow the same, uh sign regulations as any other business in town. So whether that's being addressed in um their permit, you know, maybe it's done through there. But yes, there is some concern there. Other concerns that I've heard too is how the signage is posted on the window and how big that can be. I've heard complaints between businesses arguing that out. So again, I would like to see what they want and how we can support them.
So, Chair Rhonda, we have been successful just last week in removing some of those banner signs on 3rd Street. For a food truck. Those did come down, so that was one of Roy Morales' successes. And to Commissioner Maderis's point, this letter of July 29, 2022 was hand delivered to every business owner, so they knew that what the rules were. And it say in here that there are no neon signs, that 11-10-020 includes neon signs, and it was hand delivered. So no one could come back and say, you know,
Yeah.
Let's get them over there tonight.
yeah, no, I understand. Like I said, it ebbs and flows, but so those efforts do work and we have tried different ways to get the word out.
Got it. And then one last comment. The other thing I want to be cautious about is I know we want to make sure we have our code enforcement going out and trying to get everyone to comply and get everything looking good, but also be careful, right? We've had that feedback where you know we've kind of over enforced things and then there's a riot in town and everyone's pissed off. So again, you know, I would be interested to hear what the public wants, what our businesses want. Do they want that enforcement? You know, like crazy. Or do they want some? Or, you know, I think we can have a happy medium, but just be cautious of that. We had that issue with the food trucks and stuff, and it got a little out of control there for a second. But I don't mind it, but just
And just for clarification, the 3rd Street businesses, they have to rely on the city sidewalk to put up an A-frame sign. And so that's public property and they can't do that. And they're oftentimes, they put them out at the corner when their business is in the center of the block, the more than 15 feet. So that was one of that's what inspired this letter.
sweet. Other than that, I have no other comments. Any further comments from the commissioners?
So we're gonna go from here.
So my plan, if this is what you would like to do, is I heard that window signs is one, temporary banners, those pole pennants and all that stuff is another, potentially A-frame signs. I don't know if I just said it, window signs, and how about I can see what's going on in cities around, see what they're doing. I can come back and we can have it as another sidebar discussion.
That's great.
As just like, these are what these 10 cities are doing. Do you like that? Do you hate that? Maybe come with like a couple of suggestions from staff to make the sign ordinance more clean.
Okay.
For us, and then no decision would be made at that meeting, just be another decision, and then we could eventually evolve into amending the sign ordinance if we wanted to. My ultimate goal with anything, especially with the sign ordinance, is that we should have a handout for the public that explains what they can and can't do, because a member of the public reading a zoning ordinance, that's like a foreign language, right? That it's better for staff to put it in plain English for everyone, and then we'd have that available to everyone. But I wouldn't do that until we kind of work through if we want to change anything and how we're gonna go. That would be like very end of the the road kind of
That
thing.
sounds really good.
I like it.
Mr. Chair, two things. First, an editorial comment regarding public input and so forth. I think there's two scenarios. One where a business owner, and this pertains to commercial, there's one scenario where a business owner genuinely doesn't know or is ignorant or needs some education. Oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that. Yeah, you can't. And then there's the other situation, which we see regrettably too often, which is business owners and others who just frankly do whatever they can get away with. They know darn well what's allowed and what's not, and they're gonna push the edge of the envelope until somebody pushes back. And that's why I think we need some strong ordinances and some strong enforcement, a strong enforcement program. Lastly, I didn't hear, Erica, you addressed my concern about those string lights around the
Oh, the
windows.
string lights.
Around several, a number of businesses, it's not just one, right in the middle of the historic district, and maybe you and the city manager can just kick that around a little bit, and when you come back for this next discussion, we can talk about what tools are in our toolbox to address that.
I'll bring it as like a secondary item. I just don't know that it's appropriate in the sign ordinance, but I can figure out
I
where.
don't know
maybe
where
would be
something
the
like
most
that-
appropriate. Yeah.
I
And
agree, I don't know where something like that would live either,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know, but it's a real problem.
but yes, I have that down.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any comments from the public in chambers?
No speaker cards received, Chair.
Thank you. Any public comments from Sue?
Seeing no hands raised.
All right, well, then we will move on to our next agenda item. And it's gonna be 4C, golf carts, oh, sorry.
Oh, there's the next regular planning commission meeting in July?
Yeah, we didn't really, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I think
You want a date certain for the next discussion on signs?
the planning director indicated we're gonna have another discussion, so my question just was.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna get a report back on what you find at the next planning commission, unless we're, and then I would assume we would do a workshop to allow the public to make their.
Yeah, I don't think we're like at a workshop yet, cause
Yeah, I
we
think
need to
you
like
just need to-
focus ourselves, otherwise it becomes too open-ended. We'll just
Yeah,
end
so
up
I would assume at the next planning
Yeah,
commission that you would
the
come
next
back.
Planning commission, hopefully we can come back with something.
Got it.
So we can continue our discussion.
Okay, great, that sounds perfect.
Wait.
Is it worth it to note about the commercial sign on the residential property?
That can happen sooner than later. I'll bring that to our public safety coordinators.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so moving on to 4C, golf carts, neighborhood electric vehicles, NEV or NEV plan. Staff, do we have a report?
Well, the council talked about this several times back in 2022, 2023. And I provided examples and the staff report that we used back then. And I'm sorry, it is a lot of reading. I didn't realize all of this. I'll tell you, you just spend a weekend with my in-laws in Lincoln, California. And you'll know all about NEVs and golf carts. And to me, they make awesome running lanes because it's like 6 feet wide. Because there's not very many golf carts on them, but even the garages in those homes that Del Webb built have little golf cart garages.
Yep.
Councilmember Friels has a golf cart that he's very proud of. It was in the most recent parade, and Mayor Friels, and so he was really interested in this topic, and so I got up to speed on it as soon as I could. I have the Coachella Valley Association of Governments NED plan in here, and I brought this forward, and what we realized is that the California Vehicle Code allows golf carts to be driven on the city streets in streets with speed limits of less than 35 miles an hour, and to cross intersections when they're signal and control. And so there's not a street in our town that's faster than 35 miles an hour. And so as I'm sharing this with the council, they're saying, well, do we have to do anything? And you know, there are ways to stripe the streets and to put up signs and to provide parking and charging stations and other things, but the council didn't want to go to that level. They just said, thank you for this great report. We'll do nothing. So I mean, there are, I mean, as you can see, and I'll just share with you, there's a whole sign program that goes with these. And so there is a lot that we can do. They are popular. We have some expensive golf carts in town.
Yeah. Recently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it is a popular item. But just share with you that the council didn't want to they didn't want to go into hiring a consultant and creating a plan.
Got it.
Okay.
Um,
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, can I clarify?
Go for it.
So in other words, council says nothing further is necessary?
Right.
Okay. That makes short work for us.
well, yeah, no, yeah, so, all I can say is I brought this up just because we had a council member bring it up again. So I'm just trying to figure out whether we need to do anything, whether it means, like you said, striping the roads, putting up signage. Obviously, we already have an issue in this town with signs. So I don't know if more signs will help us here, but yeah, I don't know if it makes sense to even try to restripe parking for golf cart. I mean, they can park wherever they can squeeze
Sure.
in. So I brought it up just to see if any action is needed. But if you're telling me council doesn't want to do anything, then
At the time, that was Liz's recollection also, and we double check the minutes, so.
yeah. So at this point, I'll open it up to commissioners for comments.
Just a question. So since the city council does not want to do anything about it, then the golf carts are going to be, will they be treated as a vehicle, therefore parking regulations, all those will apply to them?
Yes, they're
Okay.
required to have a VIN number, seat belts. There's a whole list of things in the vehicle code.
Okay, thank you.
Rearview mirrors, lights.
Any other comments from commissioners?
No speeding tickets.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point though, actually, because there is a kind of a golf cart looking thing that it's not electric. There's one in town that gets ridden around that is gas powered. And there's also a couple with gas powered go-karts, I guess you call them, go-karts, not really golf carts.
Mm,
Yeah.
So we've found them, people have helped us figure out where they live, and we've tracked them down and said, you're gonna get hurt because they're so low profile.
Yeah.
The gas powered ones are too fast and a little reckless compared to the electric ones that are visible.
Okay.
And
Well, as long as they're subject to the same vehicle regulations, then I guess you can ticket them.
Yes.
Okay,
that would be
Got it.
interesting.
okay.
thank you.
And so I'm assuming there wouldn't be a need for any type of ordinance then, right? Because they would just follow whatever, street.
Yeah, that was our conclusion.
Okay, well then, well, I think that takes care of that. I mean, I don't have any other thing. I mean, I don't see us restriping and
No,
Yeah,
doing all that stuff. I think just
until we turn into Del Webb.
yeah, until we turn into Catalina or something and it's everyone's driving like a golf cart. Yeah.
That's right.
So then I think, yeah, I don't have anything.
I just want to say for whatever it's worth that I'm in favor of the advent of the golf cart electric. I think they're clean, green, they're easy. They seem like a lot of fun. If I could get one right now, I'd consider it. You know,
mhm.
seems like a great way. Just go to Windmill, go to Vertigo on Fridays or whatever.
Got it.
I think they're cool.
And then, Don, by any chance, has there been any complaints about golf carts or anything that might be concerning?
There was one or two inquiries about a certain golf cart with children in it and safety for children and car seats and that kind of thing.
Got it.
I know the one.
But we haven't taken any actual enforcement action or any. We haven't even talked to them.
All right, so no nuisance or anything that would
No.
cause an issue of concern. Okay, well, I'm okay. Any other commissioner comments? No. All right, any comments from the public in chambers?
No speaker cards received, Chair,
Any public comments from Zoom?
and no hands raised.
All right, so well, with that being said, there's no action or anything. I think we can let that drop. I thank staff for giving us that report. Moving on to our next section, comments from or just discussion items, anything from the commissioners? None?
Just one. I just want to make sure that I publicly thank the staff for always coming prepared and having the information and documentation for us to review and have a good meeting. So thank you, staff.
I second that. Yeah, thank you.
All in favor?
Just kidding. And then, yeah, the only comment I have, nothing crazy, just wanted to let anyone online know, we have a rainbow run for Rotary in town, so I encourage those to come out, check that out. I think that'd be really cool. So moving on here, yeah, I am running, so I'll see you guys there, right? So, moving on, any, comments or discussion items from staff?
No, not in particular. We have an application in, from the Community Health Foundation. I don't believe it's complete and a letter was going out soon
Yeah.
to them. So they have filed their application for their, health clinic and housing on 70 Muckalemme, but it was incomplete. So we're still in process with that.
All right, sweet.
Did it include red rains and not
Sort of,
Big sort of.
sort of.
elevations?
I haven't seen them, but I don't think they're very detailed.
Huh?
I don't think they're very
They're,
detailed.
they're not very detailed. They need a lot of work.
I do have one more question. My apologies.
Mhm.
Comment about, comment or question. Is there a date or, an update on the status of filling the vacant seat position for our planning commission?
Liz, that's going forward on the 18th.
18th of June?
Sweet.
Thank you.
And then,
But can I follow up?
Yeah.
Are you at liberty to disclose how many applications there were for that seat?
We had 2 applicants.
Okay, thank you.
great. And then, well, I mean, other comments from our city manager?
No, fine.
All right, well then, with that being said, the next regular planning commission meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024. It is now 7:21. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.